I always thought the little things would be what ruined us. The way she left the kitchen cabinets open, or how she'd hum just a bit off key when loading the dishwasher. Instead, it was a silent, hidden thing. So small, so out of place that at first I almost missed it. But I didn't. And once you see, you cannot unsee. It started on a Thursday, the day I found the men's protection in my wife's bag. I was hunting for the car keys. Her bag was the likeliest place, thrown carelessly on the hall table as always. I fished blindly, my fingers brushing past lipstick tubes, crumpled receipts, a mint tin. Then something smooth, unfamiliar. My hand wrapped around it and I pulled it out, expecting a pen. Instead, I stood there stupidly, staring at a foil wrapper with the unmistakable outline of a condom. There was only one. My heart thudded, a hollow, echoing sound. I stared at it for a long time, as if it might transform into something innocent if I just blinked enough. But reality doesn't work that way. I should have confronted her right there, but what would I say? Why do you have this? She'd laugh, make some joke, turn the question back on me. Guilt, at that moment, felt like a living thing in the room, breathing the same air I did. Instead, I put it back exactly as I found it. But not before I did something reckless and desperate. I slid my tiny canister of pepper spray, usually clipped to my bike bag, into the same compartment. I'm not sure what I meant by it. Maybe it was a petty warning. Maybe it was a message. Or maybe it was just proof that I could still take action, however pointless. That night, I watched her more closely than usual. She hummed in the kitchen, poured a glass of wine, and laughed at something on her phone. I studied her face for signs, a flicker of guilt, a shadow of fear. But she was inscrutable, as always. I almost convinced myself I was being paranoid. But paranoia feeds itself. I became a detective in my own home. I checked her phone when she showered. No luck, everything locked down. I watched her eyes during conversations, waiting for 'em to dart, for her to flinch when I mentioned old friends or new projects. But if she was hiding something, she was better at it than I ever imagined. Then the universe handed me a clue, as if rewarding my persistence. 2 weeks after the discovery, I got a notification from the shared cloud album we'd set up years ago, back when we traveled and did things worth remembering. I never checked it anymore. Neither did she, I assumed. But that day, a batch of new photos popped up. The first was a selfie, her face slightly flushed, hair tousled, in what was unmistakably a hotel room. The timestamp was from last Saturday. The next image showed a crumpled bedsheet, a champagne bottle, 2 glasses. Then, as if the universe wanted to be absolutely clear, there was a photo of a hotel receipt, room number circled in red, her handwriting in the margin. Next time, ask for late checkout. My world shrank to a pinprick. I sat there, numb, scrolling through the evidence. She hadn't even tried to hide it, not really. Was it arrogance or carelessness, or was she asking to be caught? For a while, I did nothing. I went through the motions of marriage, every day a performance. I wondered if she noticed my silence, the way I avoided her touch. She asked once if something was wrong. I shook my head and lied as smoothly as she must have. But the images burned themselves into my mind. The evidence was overwhelming, yet I still wanted to believe in an innocent explanation. Maybe she was alone. Maybe the glasses were for room service. Maybe the receipt was a joke. I clung to those maybes until they crumbled. My chance for confrontation came sooner than expected. We were cleaning out the garage one Saturday, a chore we'd both been putting off. She reached into her bag for the tape measure, and her hand closed around the pepper spray instead. She pulled it out, frowning. "Why is this in here?" she asked. I shrugged, keeping my voice steady. Figured you might need it, never know. She looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time in weeks I saw something in her eyes, a flicker of panic, quickly masked. We worked in silence after that. Every gesture, every word felt loaded. I wanted to scream, to demand the truth, but my anger was a slow, simmering thing. I needed more. Later that night, after she fell asleep, I checked the cloud album again. Most of the photos were gone, deleted, but not all. She'd missed a few, tucked away in a subfolder. More hotel rooms, more receipts, and a new face, a man younger than me, with a crooked grin and eyes that seemed to look right through the camera and into my soul. I stared at him, bile rising in my throat. The betrayal was complete. Still, I hesitated. I wanted to know everything before I confronted her. I needed a plan. I started following her routines, looking for patterns. She had a yoga class every Thursday night, always coming home flushed and energized. I checked her gym bag, nothing. But when I checked her car, I found a second phone hidden under the driver's seat, powered off. That was the final straw. The next Thursday, I waited. She left at 6, yoga mat slung over her shoulder, keys jangling. I waited 15 minutes, then grabbed my coat and followed. She wasn't hard to track. She drove across town, parked by a boutique hotel, and walked in like she owned the place. I sat in my car, hands shaking, watching the entrance. 20 minutes later, the man from the photos arrived. I waited another hour, then went in. The desk clerk barely looked up as I crossed the lobby. I found their room easily. Her handwriting had given it away. I stood outside the door, heart hammering, hand in my pocket, gripping the pepper spray. I didn't know what I intended. An ambush? A confrontation? Or just to see, with my own eyes, the end of everything. But as I raised my fist to knock, I heard laughter inside. Her laugh, soft, familiar, but edged with something I hadn't heard in years. Joy? Relief? Desire? The sound cut deeper than any knife. I walked away. I sat in my car for an hour, staring at the dashboard, the city lights blurring through my tears. I drove home in silence, the radio off, the only sound my own ragged breathing. She came home late, smelling of hotel soap and cheap wine. She slipped into bed beside me, her back to mine, body rigid. The next morning, I confronted her. I laid out the evidence, photos, receipts, the second phone. I watched as her mask crumbled, as the truth spilled out in broken sentences and gasping sobs. She admitted everything. The affair had started months ago, a chance meeting at a conference. She said she never meant for it to go this far, that she still loved me, that she was lost. I listened. I asked questions I never thought I'd ask. Why him? Why now? Was it me? Her answers were messy, contradictory. She felt unseen, unappreciated. She wanted to feel alive again. It wasn't about me, she said. It was about her. I wanted to believe her. Part of me still loved her, still wanted to fix things. But another part, the part that had found the condom, that had watched her laugh behind closed doors, knew we were already finished. We tried therapy. We tried forgiveness. But trust is a fragile thing, once broken. In the end, we let go. I moved out. She kept the house. We divided our things, our lives, with the cold efficiency of strangers. The last thing I packed was the pepper spray. I left it on the kitchen counter, a silent reminder of everything we'd lost. Months passed. I rebuilt my life, piece by piece. I started dating again, cautiously, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Trust, I learned, is something you have to choose every single day. Sometimes I think back to that moment, the condom in the bag, the pepper spray, the shared album of secrets. I wonder if things would be different if I'd acted sooner or forgiven more easily. But regret is a poison, and I refuse to drink it. Now, when I see her in passing, we nod, exchange small talk, pretend we are okay. Maybe, in some way, we are. If you've listened this far, let me know your thoughts below, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories. Some nights after moving out, sleep was a foreign country. I'd lie in my rented bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the ghost of our old life pacing the room.
The world outside seemed to move on, but inside I was caught in a recurring loop, rewinding memories, dissecting conversations, reliving the night I found that damned condom. The way the world split open at the seam, quiet and sudden. The first week apart, I kept expecting her to call, to text, to knock on the door swearing it was all a mistake. But the phone stayed silent. The only pings came from banks and delivery notifications, the detritus of a life no longer shared. I started running again, something I'd neglected for years. The cold wind burning my face felt like penance. After a few miles, my mind would empty. No album, no pepper spray, no hotel receipts. Just the rhythm of my breathing and the slap of sneakers on pavement. Sometimes I'd run past our old house, convinced I'd see her silhouette in the kitchen window. Maybe waiting for me, maybe crying. But the lights were always off. One night, I found myself outside the bar where we'd first met. It was unintentional, just the path my feet took, but there it was, the neon sign buzzing, the same sticky tables, the smell of spilled beer and fried food clinging to the air. I stood outside, shivering, remembering how she'd laughed at my terrible jokes, how she'd reached across the table and squeezed my hand. That version of us felt like a story someone else had told me, one I'd only half believed. I went inside, ordered a whiskey, and sat at the end of the bar. On the TV, a late-night talk show host cracked jokes about politicians cheating on their spouses. The audience laughed. I didn't. I wondered if anyone around me could tell, just by looking, that I'd been betrayed, that I was the punchline now. The bartender, a woman with sharp eyes and a tattoo of a swallow on her wrist, asked if I wanted another. I hesitated, then nodded. She poured the drink, slid it over, and said, "Tough night?" I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "You could say that." She didn't press. Instead, she wiped down the bar and said, "It gets better. Not easier, but better, eventually." I nodded, though I didn't believe her. The days blurred together. Work was a relief, numbers, emails, tasks, things that made sense. But inevitably, I'd catch myself staring at my phone, scrolling through old photos, stopping at the one from her birthday weekend in the city, the one where she was holding a piece of cake, grinning at me, her eyes crinkling at the corners. Was that before or after? I couldn't remember. I'd never know. My friends tried to help in the only way they knew how, beer and distraction. We'd sit in someone's garage, laughter echoing off the walls, the conversation ping-ponging between sports, work, and the latest Netflix show. But eventually, someone would ask, "How are you, really?" And the laughter would die. I'd shrug, say, "I'm fine," and we'd all pretend to believe it. No one wanted to say the word affair. My parents called more often, their voices gentle, careful, as if I might break. My mother offered casseroles and advice. My father, never one for many words, just said, "You'll get through it, son." I wanted to believe him, but I was tired of surviving. Therapy was a last resort. I sat across from a woman with soft eyes and a notebook, spilling my story in jagged pieces. She listened, nodded, occasionally scribbled something down. When I finished, she asked, "What do you want now?" I didn't know. Forgiveness? Closure? Revenge? Maybe just a way to breathe without feeling like I was drowning. Months slipped by. Spring arrived, stubborn and bright, and with it a cautious sense of renewal. I found joy in small things. A perfectly brewed cup of coffee, a good book, a lazy Sunday morning with sunlight spilling across the sheets. I started seeing someone new, a woman named Mia, who had a quick wit and a kind heart. We took it slow. I told her about my past, about the album, the pepper spray, the way trust can shatter in an instant. She didn't flinch. She just listened, her hand resting on mine, steady and warm. One afternoon, as we walked through the park, my phone buzzed. It was an email from my ex-wife. The subject line was blank. My stomach clenched. I opened it. It was short. A few sentences, no greeting, no sign-off. She wanted to talk. She said she was sorry. She hoped I was okay. I stared at the message, the words blurring. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to reply with anger, to list the ways she'd hurt me, to demand answers she could never give. But another part, the tired, healing part, just wanted peace. I waited a day before writing back. I told her I was doing better. I wished her well. I closed my laptop and went outside, letting the breeze carry away the last traces of bitterness. Sometimes I still think about the album, the way secrets can live in plain sight, waiting for someone to stumble across them, the way love can curdle into something unrecognizable. But mostly, I think about the future, about the possibility of trust, of forgiveness, of starting over. Mia and I moved in together that summer. Our apartment was small, filled with mismatched furniture and the scent of fresh basil from the windowsill. We argued sometimes, about dishes, about money, about nothing at all. But it felt different, honest. When we fought, we made up. We talked about everything, even the hard things. One night, as we lay in bed, Mia traced a finger along my arm and asked, "Do you ever miss her?" I thought about it, about the woman I'd married, the life we'd built, the way it had ended. "I miss who I thought she was," I said, "but not who she became." She nodded, her head resting on my chest. "Me too," she whispered. We fell asleep like that, tangled together, the city humming outside, the past finally quiet. But healing isn't linear. Some days the old wounds thrive. I'll see a couple laughing in a restaurant or catch a whiff of her perfume on the street, and the memories surge. For a moment, I'm back in that kitchen, the pepper spray in my hand, the world tilting on its axis. Then Mia's hand finds mine, and I remember where I am, who I am now. One rainy afternoon, I ran into my ex-wife at the grocery store. She looked different, older maybe, or just tired. We exchanged awkward pleasantries in the canned goods aisle, both of us pretending this was normal. She asked about my job, about my parents. I asked about hers. She mentioned she was seeing someone new. The words hung between us, heavy and strange. As we parted ways, she stopped and said, "I'm sorry for everything." I nodded. Me too. It wasn't forgiveness, not exactly, but it was something close. That night, I told Mia about the encounter. She listened, her face unreadable. "Do you feel better?" she asked. I thought about it. "I think so," I said. "It's like closing a door I didn't realize was still open." She smiled. "Good, you deserve that." Life settled into a new rhythm. Work, home, friends, the gentle routines of ordinary days. I learned to trust again, slowly, cautiously. Not just Mia, but myself. I stopped checking her phone, stopped worrying when she was late. I let myself believe in the possibility of happiness. One evening, as we cooked dinner together, Mia asked, "Did you ever get your pepper spray back?" I laughed. "No, I left it at the old house. Maybe she needed it more than I did." Mia grinned. "Well, if you ever need protection, you know where to find me." We laughed, the sound bright and easy. Sometimes, late at night, I write letters I'll never send. To my ex-wife, to the man she loved, to the version of myself who didn't see it coming. I tell them about the pain, the anger, the slow, stubborn hope that grew in its place. I tell them I survived. And maybe that's enough. But the story doesn't end there. Because healing isn't just about letting go. It's about what you let in. A year passed. I got a promotion at work, started volunteering at a local animal shelter. Mia and I traveled, small trips at first, then a week in Italy, wandering ancient streets, eating gelato on sun-warmed steps. We made new memories, ones not haunted by betrayal. One evening, as we watched the sunset from our balcony, Mia turned to me and said, "Will you marry me?" I stared at her, stunned. I'd always imagined I'd be the one to propose, but here she was, fearless and sure. I laughed, tears in my eyes, and said, "Yes, God, yes." We laughed so hard that night, the kind of laughter that comes from shared relief and hope. a sound I hadn't heard in so long. It startled me. There was no elaborate proposal, no ring hidden in a dessert, just the two of us on a balcony with the city below and a future we were finally brave enough to claim. The next morning, I woke up before Mia. The room was awash in gentle gold, and I watched her breathing, her brow furrowed in sleep. My chest ached with something bittersweet. I remembered the night I'd found that condom, the trembling in my hands, how I'd wanted to run or scream or disappear. Now I reached for Mia's hand and whispered, "Thank you." To her, to the universe, to whatever force had led us here, battered but alive. We didn't rush the wedding. We both knew what rushing led to. Missing signs, ignoring feelings, leaving wounds unhealed. Instead, we decided to spend the next year focusing on us, on building the kind of partnership that didn't just survive pain, but grew because of it. We read books together, went to couples therapy, and talked about everything. Our fears, our dreams, the shadow of my old marriage that still sometimes lingered between us like a ghost. One afternoon, 6 months into our engagement, Mia found me in the kitchen, staring at my phone with a strange look on my face. She leaned against the counter. "What's up?" I turned the phone so she could see. My ex-wife had texted. Just a simple message. "Hey, hope you're well. Can we talk sometime?" Mia's eyes softened. "Do you want to?" I considered, then nodded. "I think I need to." We met at a quiet cafe on a rainy Sunday. She looked older, tired, but her eyes still held that spark. We talked about everything, except what had happened between us, at first. She asked about my parents, my job, Mia. I asked about her work, her new apartment. There was a hesitance between us, a politeness I didn't recognize. Finally, she said, "I owe you an apology." I shook my head. "We've both said everything there is to say." She reached across the table, her hand trembling. "No, I need you to hear it. I'm sorry for the way I left, for the lies, for making you doubt yourself. I was so lost, and I took everything out on you. I never meant to ruin us." Hit me harder than I expected. For so long I'd wanted to hear them, to feel vindicated, to have her admit the hurt she caused. Now, hearing them, I just felt tired. "I forgive you," I said quietly, and I meant it. The wound that had ached for so long felt lighter, as if her words had finally lanced the poison. We didn't linger. We hugged, awkward and brief, then went our separate ways. In the car, I sat for a long time, watching the rain pelt the windshield, feeling something inside me settle. That night, I told Mia about the conversation. She listened, her hands cradling a mug of tea. "Are you okay?" she asked. I nodded. "I think I am. For the first time, I really am." In the year that followed, Mia and I built a life that felt solid and true. We adopted a dog, a nervous mutt from the shelter who, like us, had been through more than his share of heartbreak. We named him Pepper, a private joke I never had to explain. We hosted dinners for friends, traveled to places neither of us had ever seen, and spent lazy Sundays in bed, wrapped in each other's arms. Sometimes I caught myself waiting for the other shoe to drop, for betrayal to come sneaking in through the back door. But it never did. Mia was steadfast, honest, loving in ways that still surprised me. One evening, as we watched a storm roll in from our balcony, Mia rested her head on my shoulder. "Do you ever think about what happened?" she asked softly. I considered. "Sometimes, but it feels like a different life." She smiled. "Do you regret any of it?" I shook my head. "Not anymore. I think I had to go through it to get here, to you." She squeezed my hand. "Me too." As the rain drummed on the glass, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. The past was still there, but it no longer defined me. I was not the man who found a condom in his wife's bag, or the man who planted pepper spray in retaliation. I was simply myself, flawed, healing, loved. But life, as it always does, found ways to test us. It started small, a message from an unknown number late at night. "Hey, can we talk?" I stared at it, heart thudding, until Mia wandered in from brushing her teeth. "What's up?" she asked, peering over my shoulder. I showed her the message. She frowned. "Do you recognize the number?" I shook my head. No idea. We agreed to ignore it, but more messages followed, cryptic, unsettling. "You don't know the whole story. Ask her about the hotel in April. How well do you really know your fiancé?" My first instinct was panic, the old anxiety roaring back. I wanted to believe Mia, to trust the life we'd built, but the messages wormed their way into my thoughts. I became distant, distracted, replaying every conversation, every unexplained absence. Finally, I confronted Mia, my voice trembling. "Is there something you need to tell me?" She looked hurt, but didn't get defensive. "No, where is this coming from?" I handed her my phone, showing her the messages. She read them slowly, her brow knitting. "I don't know who this is," she said, voice steady. "But if you want to check my phone, my email, whatever, you can. I have nothing to hide." I searched, not because I didn't believe her, but because I needed to prove the fear wrong. I found nothing but love letters, dog photos, reminders to buy groceries. We reported the number and blocked it. For weeks, I jumped at every buzz of my phone, but the messages stopped. Mia never held it against me, never made me feel foolish or paranoid. She held me when I needed it, reassured me when I doubted. That was the difference. With her, I could be afraid and still be loved. The wedding, when it finally came, was small but perfect. We married in a botanical garden, surrounded by friends, family, and a handful of bees that buzzed lazily in the summer heat. Pepper trotted down the aisle ahead of us, tail wagging, bow tie askew. As Mia walked toward me, sunlight in her hair, I felt every moment, the heartbreak, the anger, the forgiveness, culminate in this one breathless instant. I wasn't marrying a fantasy or a replacement for what I'd lost. I was marrying the woman who'd stood beside me through every storm, who saw all my broken pieces and loved me anyway. The vows we wrote were simple. I promised to choose her every day, to listen, to forgive, to grow. She promised to do the same. There were tears, laughter, and a sense of rightness I hadn't dared hope for. The reception was a blur of music, dancing, and speeches. My father, who'd watched me unravel years before, hugged me hard and whispered, "You did good, kid." That night, after everyone had gone home, Mia and I lay in bed, exhausted and giddy. "You know," she murmured, tracing circles on my chest, "I never imagined I'd get a second chance at this." "Me neither," I said, "but I'm glad we did." We drifted off to sleep, Pepper curled at our feet, the past finally at peace. In the months that followed, I found myself drawn to helping others who'd been through the same fire. I volunteered for a support group, listened to stories of betrayal and hope, offering what little wisdom I'd gained. I told them it was possible to heal, to love again, to find beauty in the ashes. One evening, after a particularly raw meeting, I sat in my car and thought about all the versions of myself I'd been. The betrayed, the angry, the vengeful, the hopeful. I realized I wouldn't change any of it. Every scar had shaped me into someone capable of deep love and forgiveness. Mia and I weren't perfect. We argued about dishes, money, whose turn it was to walk Pepper. But the foundation we'd built was strong, tempered by pain, yes, but also by the choices we made every day to show up for each other. Sometimes, late at night, I still get flashes of the past, a hotel receipt, a hidden album, the sharp sting of betrayal. But now, I let them come and go like summer storms. They no longer have the power to undo me. One crisp autumn morning, as we hiked a wooded trail, Mia stopped and turned to me. "Do you ever wish things had gone differently?" she asked. I took her hand, squeezing gently. "No, if they had, I might never have found you." She smiled, eyes bright with unshed tears. Perhaps the most surprising part of our journey was how naturally we fell into the role of supporting others who'd been through similar experiences. Mia started a blog, sharing her insights on rebuilding trust and finding love again. I joined a local support group where I met people from all walks of life, each with their own story of betrayal and healing. One evening, as we sat in a small cafe, sipping coffee and discussing our plans for the future, Mia turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "You know, I've been thinking," she said, "maybe it's time we share our story with a wider audience. Not just the blog, but a book or even a podcast." I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. A podcast? About what? About us, about our journey, about healing and forgiveness. I think people need to hear it. I nodded slowly, the idea growing on me. We could help others see that there was a way out of the darkness, that love could be stronger than betrayal. We started working on the podcast, pouring our hearts into each episode. We shared our story, our struggles, and our triumphs. We interviewed other couples who'd survived infidelity, each with their own unique tale of resilience. The response was overwhelming. People reached out to us, thanking us for our honesty, for showing them that healing was possible. We became a beacon of hope for those lost in the wilderness of betrayal. One day, as we were recording an episode, Mia mentioned the Shared Cloud album again. This time, it wasn't about pain or betrayal. It was about how it had led us to where we were today. "Sometimes," she said, her voice filled with emotion, "I wonder what would have happened if we hadn't found that album. Would we have stayed in the dark, never confronting the truth?" I smiled, reaching for her hand. "I don't know, but I do know that it led us here, to this moment, to this podcast, to helping others find their way." We paused, letting the silence hang in the air before continuing. As the months passed, our podcast gained traction. We were invited to speak at conferences, to share our story with a broader audience. We traveled, always returning to our small town, where Pepper waited patiently for us. One evening, as we sat on our couch, Pepper curled between us, Mia turned to me with a look of deep contentment. "You know, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad we went through all of that," she said. "It made us who we are today." I nodded, wrapping my arms around her. "Me too, me too." If this story resonated with you, drop a comment and hit like. It really helps the channel. And subscribe for more true stories.